Hi everyone. Welcome to our webcast, Schedules Inside and Out using Autodesk Revit. Today, Martha Hollowell will be taking you through Chapter 2 of the Autodesk Official Training Guide, BIM Management, Template and Family Creation. Martha is the author of this training guide as well as ASCENT's leading building systems curriculum developer. I will now pass things over to Martha Hollowell. Martha, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Corrine. Well, welcome everyone. As Corrine said, I'm Martha Hollowell, and I thank you for joining us today. Just a little bit about me. Every year I write and update training courseware for Revit Architecture, Revit MEP, and Revit Structure that's used by trainers and students around the world. I practiced architecture for a number of years, did CAD consulting and training, and I started writing because what was out there really needed some help. So anyway, I've been writing for quite a long time. I've written for AutoCAD, AutoCAD Architecture, and I've worked with Revit since version 5. Just to let you know, I was at the AIA, the American Institute of Architects show in Denver this past year, as well as the Architecture Boston Expo. So occasionally I do get out to meet customers, and so if you're coming to some events this year, check and make sure to see if ASCENT is there or not. So let's go ahead and get started with schedules. As Corrine mentioned, I am taking the majority of this information from our BIM management course. I'm going to be covering parts of Chapter 2 on schedules. I have pulled out just certain parts of it, though. There's no way you could cover everything this is in a short webcast like we're doing today. So I'm going to cover creating building component schedules. By having that done, then we kind of cover, here's the general way you do any kind of schedules. I'm also going to tell you how to modify schedule appearance, and then we're going to go into some advanced schedule options. So first of all, what we want to do is talk about how to schedule building components based on type and instance parameters of elements. Then we want to set up schedule tables using filters, sorting, grouping, formatting, appearance, a variety of things like that. So when you start the building or the schedule quantities command, the first thing you do is you come into this new schedule dialog box. And this is where you select the type of schedule that you want to create. And all the different elements are out there to choose from. I've filtered this particular list by architecture because I was going to do a door schedule. But it is, you can filter it by, mechanical and plumbing and electrical and structural. So you get the types of elements that you are working on. And just so you'll know, I am going to do a variety of demonstrations, and I will use examples from architecture, MEP, and structure as I work through. So once you have selected the type of schedule you want to do and you click OK, it goes into the Schedule Properties dialog box. And here you're going to specify the parameters that you want to include in the schedule. And the parameter list, as you can see on the left, is where you're going to select from, and these are going to be the available fields from the doors in this particular example. And you move the ones you want over to the other side. You can move them up and down, or you can put them in an order. And just for a second, I'm going to come in here and get a pen so you can see a little bit better. So here's what I was talking about. You move from available fields, and you put it into the schedule fields. The next tab in the Properties dialog box is the Filter tab, and you can specify any conditions you want to filter by. So in this particular example, we want to make sure that you're only seeing levels on level 1. So we've got it so it's set here to equals, and you're just going to have level 1 here. In sorting and grouping, you then specify how you want the information to be sorted. And as I go through some of the schedule creation, I'll talk more about what's in this particular dialog box. In the Formatting tab, you specify how you want the header information for each field to display. And you also have other options as well. So here's my level I mentioned earlier. It's the heading of level. You can also do additional things like this one. You can hide fields. So in this case, I wanted to sort or filter by level, but I don't really need that showing in my schedule, so I've gone ahead and made that a hidden field. The final tab in this dialog box is the Appearance tab, and this is where you can set up how you want the grid around the table to look, as well as the text that is in there. And you can set it up for the title, header, and body. So here you can go title, header, and body. When you click OK, it creates the schedule, but it's always good to know how to get back into that dialog box, and in your schedule view that you're in, the properties will be there, and there are the options here to open back up into the Fields tab, the filter, sorting and grouping, formatting, and appearance, as you can see. So all these are available. It opens the Schedule Properties dialog box according to whichever tab you're selecting there. So let's go ahead and start our demonstration. I'm using parts of Practice 2A, creating schedules for architectural projects for this example. So I have up here my building that has some doors in it, because I'm going to create a door schedule. And I can either go up to my View tab and select Schedule Quantities right here, or as I frequently do, I come down into my project browser and I right-click on Schedule Quantities and select New Schedule Quantities. Either way opens the same thing. Well, as you can see here, my last time I used this, I had a mechanical filter, so let me come back in here and change that to architectural. And now I can get to my door schedule. In this case, I am going to do a level 1 door schedule, so I'm going to name that so I know which door schedule this is. I'm going to name it Door Schedule Level 1. And I am, as we talked about earlier, scheduling building components. I click OK, and there I am in my Fields tab. So it's going to take just a minute. I'm going to add a whole bunch of fields to this particular schedule that we're working on. You can select it and then click Add. Whoops, I just selected 2. There you go. And then click Add, and it moves it on over. Or you can double-click on it. So, for example, I also want the mark. I can just double-click, and that's probably what I'll do for the rest of these as I go through and I add them. Now, I'm adding these in order, but you can actually add them in whatever order you want and then move things up and down and around depending on where it is you want them in the list. So here it is. I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. I want you to see the base schedule. So here it is. I have my entire door schedule. A lot of information is actually filled in here because it is filled in the individual elements. Some of these, by the way, are useful for type properties. So for example, if I tried that, it would change it for all of the types. I don't want to do that. And some of them are individual properties. So if I did change this one, it didn't bother anything. It's an instance property. So I'm going to come back and just put that there. The other thing that you can see is available or is happening here is I have not only level 1, but I have level 2, and I have level 3 in here. So I'm going to need to do some work for that. I also can see my marks are out of order. So they're putting in kind of what looks randomly to me. So I need to make sure that those things are in order. So to do that, I'm going to come back on in to starting with my Filter tab, and I'm going to select my level equals level 1. And I want you to know that the choices here are only the choices available that you already have as fields. And then once you're in the levels, the only choices you have are the levels that are in that particular project. I'm going to jump over here to sorting and grouping, and I'm going to do that by mark. And by the way, I'm using mark here instead of type mark because I want each individual door to be established, as opposed to maybe windows where you only want to have to show one copy of each window and then the number of them that are available. So in this case, I'm also itemizing every instance. In the case of what I just mentioned, like the window schedule, I would not. Let's go ahead and pick OK one more time. And there we go. We have a little bit better organization here. I'm only seeing level 1. My marks are in order. So I'm going to come on back to formatting was the next thing I wanted to modify. And now I could have, by the way, gotten rid of or hidden the column in the schedule itself, but I did want you to see in the formatting where I'm doing that. So I'm hitting level. I'm going to make that a hidden field. And just for one other change, I'm going to add in some different size text for this, and I'm not going to bother with the graphics at the moment. So I'm just going to make it size differences here. So 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, 3 32 inch sizes. Click OK again, and there you can see my level column is gone, and you can see a difference in the size of my door schedule title text. These you really can't see the difference in, but I'm going to go ahead and put this on a sheet. Let's see, yes, I have a sheet for schedules. And when I put it on the sheet, you should be able to see that additional size difference. So there it is. I'm going to zoom in. I can modify the sizes here, or the width of the column. Zoom in a little closer. You can see the height difference now between the header text and the individual cell text. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch back to our PowerPoint, and I'm going to move on and now talk about how you can modify the schedule appearance. When you're modifying the schedule appearance, you can change the content of individual cells, and especially the title and the header cells are some things that you can change. As you can see here in this example, we've actually added in some more information and changed some of the background. All of these are found in the Schedule Quantities tab of the ribbon when you're in the schedule view. So I'm just going to be coming from the left and going across the ribbon to the right to cover what all the various choices are. And then again, I'm going to come in and do a demonstration to cover this in more depth. So in the parameters panel that you see here, you can actually add in parameters. So you can change, in this case, like project information. You can add in the project name. That's beyond just the individual elements. So, you know, the door element doesn't have the project information in it, but this is an additional way you can add that in. You can also insert, delete, and resize, and of course, as I mentioned, hide your columns and your rows. One thing that you do need to know is if you have hidden something and you don't want it hidden, you have to unhide all, which means that then you have to come back in and hide the ones you wanted if you had more than one in that way. You can add additional rows to the titles, and you can see here in this particular example, you have the base door schedule, and then we've added in a whole row across here. But then we came in and we merged several cells together. So this is a way to actually add in some of that extra information. Another thing that you can do with the headers is you can group the headers together to create subheaders. And I'll show you that again in one of the practices. The final choice that's in here is the appearance. And this is where you actually come in and you can change the font height, add shading, you can modify the borders in ways, and then you can also align the horizontal and vertically all of the text that's in there. Thankfully, the reset button is there too, so if you have gotten too far out of line, you can just hit reset, and it goes back to the base information that's stored in the schedule properties. So this time I'm going to go ahead and we're going to create schedules for a structural project. Well, let me go ahead and close this one. I'm going to save changes. And I want to open up Axiom Building. Yay, I have it here. So in this case, I actually have already created the schedule just to save some time in this case. The practice does have you getting to this point in the schedule before you do some of the modifications to the appearance. So what I'm going to do is add in that extra set of title rows that you saw in some of the examples. So I come in here and I select my main title. I'm going to come to my Rows tab, Insert, and I'm going to have it come in below the selected. And as you can see, it creates several different cells. I'm going to merge these two together. So I pick and drag to select them, and then I'm going to go ahead and merge them together. So now I have 3 different cells. In these cells, I'm going to add some more information. So what I would like to do first is add in the project name. So I come here and I select that, and then I come to my Parameters tab, and I want to schedule project information. Then I go into my parameter, and I can select, in this case, I want the project name. And you can see it came on in with the name Axiom Building. And it's getting that from the project properties that it can be set up on the Manage tab. In this one, I'm just going to type in project number. So this is just text. It knows that it's expecting text. And in this last one, I'm going to go ahead and set up the parameter for the project number. And again, that's something you can see there with the 2 little brackets on the end. It's saying that that is a parameter. Now let's do a little bit more work with it. Let's make some changes to the font. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm changing it directly into the individual cells rather than using the Appearance tab and specifying anything. So I select the one I want to make a change to. I select Font, and then I can modify the font size. You can make it bold, italic, whatever you want, the color. You can change the font. I'm just going to leave it Arial here. You can see it comes in and has the full name, the full structural schedule. I can also select more than one. So I did a pick and drag across, and I can come in here with the font. And I'm going to leave that at 1/8, but I do want it bold. Say, for example, that might be a change I wanted to do. And once again, you can see the difference that's coming along here. I'm going to pick and drag again and add shading. One final thing I'd like to do is work with these 2 right here, the project number and the project number itself, the actual parameter. And I'm going to change alignments. So I'm going to click in project number. I want to align that to the right. So I want it to get up as close as possible to the edge on the right. And then with this one, I'm going to align it to the left, and I want it to be as close as possible to the left in this example. I also want to get rid of this line that's between there because I don't need it. I want that to be one concept, but I needed it to be 2 separate fields or 2 separate cells so I could put the different fields in it. But I can come in here, I'm going to click here, go to my borders, and in here I can change, what type of lines I'm using, or what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to switch off the left border. So I'm going to say nothing there, okay, and when I click away from it, you can see it's actually gone ahead and made that change for me. One final thing I do want to show you is when I put this on a schedules sheet, here we go. There's the structural schedule on the sheet. You can see the information is showing there. So I have that line is gone. All my fonts are the way I'm expecting them. I have the shading and everything set the way I want. Okay, on to the next thing. This is my advanced schedule options that we're going to cover about now, and we're going to look at 4 different things. First of all, we're going to create additional parameters that are used in projects. We're then going to create calculated value fields and percentage fields in schedules, and then we're going to add conditional formatting to fields, And then Autodesk Revit MEP, you can also embed a schedule into an existing schedule. So we'll be taking a look at all of those. And I'm going to do them in individual portions and then come in and do a demo so we don't go too far ahead of what we're doing. So first of all, let's just talk about how to add project parameters. When you are in the Schedule Properties dialog box and you need to add a parameter, you click this button, Add Parameter. And in it, it's a dialog box, and this is the top of that dialog box, that shows you there are two types of parameters. There are project parameters that are available in schedules only, and shared parameters, which can be shared with tags and other projects. I'm not going to cover shared parameters today. That's a whole webcast of its own. So we're going to stick to the project parameters at the moment. And both of these, by the way, can be created wherever parameters exist. So even like there is a project parameters dialog box you can work in, and a variety of other places you might see this. The bottom of that dialog box is where you specify the parameter data. So in this case, you select whether it's going to be a type or an instance parameter. And I do want to warn you, select that first. Instance seems to be the default. And in most of the cases that I'm going to show you, I want them to be type parameters. And if you don't get it right, that you have to just go ahead and delete and start over. You can't make that change. You assign a name to the parameter, a discipline, the type of parameter, and so on. So let's look at adding some project parameters, and we're going to do this one in a structural example as well. So let me go ahead and close my little Axiom building, and we're going to open up the Century building. And this is a foundation plan, and just so you can see here, it's the top of footing. We have a variety of foundation elements. This is a spot footing. I just want you to see the title is SS 6.0. That's the name of a spot footing. And then over here, you can also see we have wall foundation footings, and their numbers are FC 3.0 and another one like that, just to clarify what those are that we are actually scheduling. And as before, I have gone ahead and created the schedule up to a certain point, and in the practice you can actually do a whole lot more of the work here. So here's my structural foundation schedule, and I have a situation where the thickness of the foundation that I want to use, the type or the parameter foundation thickness is only found actually in the continuous footings, the wall footings. And it's not found in the spot footings. But I want to have just one thickness list right here instead of having to do a foundation thickness and then change, switch it over and have another one for the spot footings. So instead of using this one, I'm going to create a new one that I'm going to then make sure is available in all of my footings. To do that, I'm going to come into my Fields tab right here. I just clicked over here. I'm going to take out foundation thickness. And then I'm going to come in and add the parameter. As I said, I'm going to do a project parameter. And I'm going to name this. I'm going to give it a long name so there's no question what it is. And I'm going to call it FS and FC, foundation thickness. And look at that, I almost did it. Whoops, type parameter. Please don't forget that part. Now, a thickness is a dimension, and so all of my defaults are going to go here. It's a common one. It needs to be a length. The dimensions is where I want to group it under. There are options for various things, but they give you, so specifically for structure or HVAC or electrical. So there are a variety of types of parameters that are available. These are the ones that are available common across all elements. I click OK. And I have my new parameter here. I want to go ahead and move that up right under width. I click OK, and there it is, my FS and FC foundation thickness. Now, I don't need to have all that long name here, So I can actually just come in here and delete that, the stuff that I don't want. So I'm going to leave it just at thickness. This is not changing anything. If I come over here to formatting, so you can see there's my field, there's my heading. So you can do this in a number of different ways you can work with it. But a couple other things I need to fix is one is my dimensions isn't working like I want it to. This is my grouping. I cannot add something to a group, so basically what I have to do is come here and select dimensions and ungroup it, and then grab all three of these and group it, pick inside, and add in my title there. So that's just a little setup in the schedule itself. Now the one other issue is my thickness. There's nothing in this. This is a brand new parameter. And I'm going to go ahead and for my FC 3.0, I'm going to put in a thickness of 1 foot. It's going to change it for all of those. It's a type parameter. Click OK. I'm going to come right here to this again. I'm just going to click this again. I'm going to highlight it in the model. So this is a nice choice. It actually shows you where that particular item is used in the model. And there they're highlighted. And I'm going to go ahead and pick Edit Type. So my wall foundation is selected. And you see, sure enough, there is that new parameter that I've added to this. And by the way, it automatically went into all types of foundation elements because that's what we were working with in our in the schedule. We were already in foundation elements, so it kind of knew that that's what it was. Let's select one of the spot footings, edit the type. Sure enough, there it is as well. Go ahead and add that. And I can either now go and select the other ones, or what's actually kind of easier, I'm going to go back to the schedule and fill in the others as well. So you can see you can add a parameter. It actually adds it to the type of element, but it's only in this particular project. It's not, this one is not shared. This one is only available here. Okay, on to the next choice that we have, calculated value parameters in schedules. This is another type of parameter, and there's actually two parts to this. You can either make percentage parameters or you can make formula parameters. And so what I'm going to do is start by covering a percentage and showing you a percentage field or how to set up one of those first. And then I'm going to go into the other formula ones, and we're going to build on another choice from there, another practice from there. So first of all, with the percentage fields, they're quite often used in something like this area schedule. So what I want to show you here is how to create this little area schedule and add in these percentage fields like you can see right here. Let's see, I'm going to open up Mall Edition. So here we have a mall. There are rooms in here, so you can see this one. I'm just selecting one of the rooms so you can see what they are. There are also areas set up so that this is already ready to do the schedule that we need to. I'm going to come down to Schedule Quantities, New Schedule Quantities. In this case, I am going to make it for areas rentable. So this particular area, I'm going to use areas rentable. I'm doing the schedule, scheduling building components, and clicking OK. I'm now going to select let's see, actually, let me go ahead and put in the other information first. I'm going to want the name and the area. We don't need a lot of information for this one. Now I'm going to hit Calculated Value, and I'm going to select Percentage. I'm going to name this Percent of Total Area. And with the percentage fields that you have a choice, in this case the only field I have available is area. And again, what these work with is if you don't have those fields set in the schedule, you can't use them. So this one is the only one that's actually set in the schedule. And in this case, the only thing I want really is the grand total. So we are using the default information here. I click OK. I have now my new scheduled field. I click OK for that. And you can see right here, very quickly, it gives me the percent of total area, the information that I was looking for. So we now know that 17% of the space and 21% of that space, that sort of information. Very, very helpful type of a formula. So let's go on to another calculated value kind. This is the formula. And in the formula, you do a little bit more work. You actually have to specify what you want the formula to be. And you can use all sorts of the various plus and minus and times and things like that. You also do need to use the fields that are already available too, as you'll see there. And in this next practice, I'm also going to show you a little bit about how to do some conditional formatting. So I wanted to just show you this on that slide too. The conditional formatting is this over here in our the blue. And typically it's used for testing. So in this particular schedule, you can see I have the area schedule, very similar to what I was using before, but I wanted to have it show what was over 2,000 square feet. Very quick way to do it. I can see it quickly. So now, for all you MEP people, I am finally getting around to an MEP choice. We're going to do the parts of the practice to create complex schedules and MEP projects. I'm going to close my area and open up my Office Airflow. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. I'm going to do View, Schedule Quantities, just to do it differently. The last time I actually set the filter list, I was using Architectural. So I'm going to come in here, turn off Architectural, turn on Mechanical. What I'm actually trying to do here is set up an airflow check. And so I'm actually going to use spaces to start with. So what I want to know is there going to be enough supply air in the spaces that are in this particular building. So I'm going to come over here and name this, and I'll just call it airflow, space airflow check. And again, I'm scheduling building components. I'm going to add these fields. I'm going to want to go ahead and have my number, that's the space number, the space name, what kind of conditioning it is. So where's my condition type? There it is. So I'm going to use that to say I just want to look at supply air. I want to know my actual supply airflow. There it is, actual supply. And then I want the calculated supply airflow. Make sure I've got the ones I need. Good. Now, I'm going to add a calculated value one here, and we're going to make just a very simple formula. But I do need to remember you need to have the fields in the scheduled fields already available before you can use them in a formula. So this is my airflow check that I'm working on right here. It's going to be a formula. I am going to specify now a different discipline. So I'm coming in here, I'm selecting HVAC, and I want to find the airflow. So you can see there's a lot of different options. What I'm looking at is airflow right now. And my formula, I could come in here and I could start typing, but what's much, much better is that I actually use this button here to select my fields. So what I want to do right now is have the actual airflow, okay, minus the calculated airflow. So I come back in here, select that, click OK. It's very important that because the names of these parameters are critical, including the capitalization. So much, much easier to use that Browse button. I'm going to click OK. Let me just do a little bit of sorting here. I want to do that by number. And in the Formatting tab, this is where I'm going to set up my conditional format. So I want that for my airflow check, and I'm going to, this by the way, I can show conditional format on the sheets or not. This is not going to be used on a sheet, but you can do it if you need to. So I want, this is my field is my airflow check, and I want to make sure that it's no less than 0. I'm going to assign a background color, and I've set up that information right there. And you can use more if you need to, but I'm just using this one. Let's go ahead and click OK and take a look at the information. So here we have the places where my airflow is the supply airflow minus the calculated airflow. These are not enough, and these are on target. Now, before I go on to the next example, I'm just going to come in here and make a change. Remember how you can modify things right there in the headers? I'm going to make sure we know that this is the space number and this is the space name. That's going to be important for the next step that we take. The next step that we are taking here is we're going to talk about embedded schedules. So right now this is only available for MEP, but it can be a very useful thing, and what we're going to do here is actually make sure or set up what are our air terminals in each space and have them all in the same place. So here you can see what we're going to come up with. We'll have the space number here, the information, and our airflow check here, but we'll also have access to the diffusers. So I'm staying in this same project, but I want to come in and create an embedded schedule now. You can see I have the option over here, embedded schedule, because I am in an MEP project. I do want to go ahead and set up an embedded schedule, and in this case I am going to use air terminals, and I'm going to go into my embedded schedule properties. Now you set up an embedded schedule very similarly, that's a good word, just like you set up other schedules. Can't say that word. So I'm going to add in several items. I'm going to set up my system classification. I'm going to select mark, and by the way, with mark here as opposed to type mark, these are individual ones. So each one of the air terminals has an individual mark. I'm going to say family and type, and I want the flow. So there we go, 4 things. Now I am going to filter, and I'm filtering by the system classification because remember in this case I wanted to just work with supply air. So here's my supply air. I'm going to do some sorting and grouping, and I'm going to sort them by mark and then by family and type. Next I'm going to go into the Formatting tab, and I'm going to hide my system classification, something I'm not going to need to see. I just needed to have it set up. I'm going to select mark, and I'm going to give it a little bit better heading. Mark, what does that mean? It's a very Revit term, and it may not be very helpful. So I'm going to rename this to diffuser ID. I'm also going to change the alignment to right, and you'll see why I did that once I finish it up. Family and type, again, Revit terms, so let's call this diffuser type, leaving that to left. And flow, we're going to say that this is the diffuser airflow. Okay, I'm finished with that. I'm going to click OK. OK again to finish up embedded schedule. And here you can see my embedded schedule. Go ahead and pull this out a little bit. So now we have more information. For one thing, I can see very quickly that this group of rooms, they have no supply diffusers. So no wonder they're out of whack. They don't have any air coming into them at the moment. The conference room does, and it looks like it has enough, here at this information here. And then I can see it has, there they are, there's 2 supply diffusers. Now, if I changed one and said, maybe I only want that to be 200 CFM, notice how it went down. Now it's below the amount that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back up to the 300. I can make the changes right here, and it's making those changes at the actual air terminal in the project as well. I come down here, for example, I see Hall 1. There's 1 supply diffuser. Well, let's take a look at that one. And so I'm going to highlight that in the model. Close this so you can't, and zoom out. And you can see here's my hall. It's actually quite a long space, and there's only 1 supply diffuser, so no big surprise, that you probably would add an additional one in that case. And by the way, I mentioned why I wanted to have my diffuser ID numbers set up. You can see here, these are the room numbers. They're kind of right justified or left justified, and here's my IDs, so I can kind of quickly view those easily down the list. So that is what I wanted to cover today. Let me just mention what we've done. We have scheduled building components based on type and instance parameters of elements. We've set up the tables using all the various tabs and schedule properties. We've modified the appearance of individual schedule cells, especially working with title and header. We've created additional parameters. We've added calculated value and percentage fields. We've applied conditional formatting, and finally we embedded a schedule into an existing schedule. So there's a lot you can do with schedules, and hopefully this will have given you a good setup to begin with. Now I do want to just mention we do have our training guide formulas that are formats. Here I'm thinking about formulas. Our training guide formats. You can get them printed. They're printed, they're spiral bound. You can get an ebook. We have instructor tools that give a little bit extra information about the project. And we also have an e-learning bundle. So right now we have a Revit Architecture e-learning bundle that is available, and you can find out more about that on our ASCENT website. And actually here it is where you need to go. We do have our ASCENT e-store. You can give us a call. You can send an email. And we're also on Twitter, and we have a blog. And as a matter of fact, one of my plans for this coming week is to have a blog post on this to answer some of the questions that people may have had. So we thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great weekend.